If you ask any Mumbaikar, the last choice that they will have is to enter politics. That was my first learning lesson that I got in politics, is that when they give you a 6 p.m. time, it only means you come by 8 p.m. Otherwise, you look foolish. Even one person and even a small contribution can make a difference. It gives me immense satisfaction to help people. It is also a journey which has come through luck, through hard work, and through what was destined. Yeah, so I have always noticed when men do it, look, this is the smartest political move ever of his life. When a woman does it, oh, look at this opportunistic woman. How does this change? My aspiration, I will say it repeatedly, was always the parliament. Good politician does not become favorite politician. Good politician means someone who knows his politics, someone who knows how to win the mandate and do that. I was speaking it from that context and I thought people would understand. But that clip went viral. Oh, look, she's now moving towards the sun. Oh, look, she's wearing an orange sari today, moving to the sun. Oh, look, she's part of the delegation, she's moving to the BJP. India's story is not about its government. India's story is about its people.
Priyanka, welcome to Delhi Love.
Thank you so much.
I've been wanting to get you in this chair for some time, so I'm very looking
Even
forward.
I've been waiting for it, waiting for the invitation. I finally have it.
Looking forward to this conversation. So tell me, you're a Mumbai girl making serious noise in Delhi's power corridors. So have you finally taken to Delhi?
Delhi, my in-laws happen to live in Delhi.
I remember
And
you
my
telling
husband
me.
studied in Delhi, but I was not a Delhi person. I was a Mumbai person. I ensured that my husband moved to Mumbai. So yeah, Delhi is a place I was familiar with, but because of my politics, I started to visit more often. I love the city. It has a very different vibe from Bombay. While Mumbai is very lively. Mumbai is also very hardworking. Mumbai also is open 24/7, etc. But here, it's the culture capital, which I believe is something which is seriously lacking in Mumbai. So yeah, I'm quite taking into Delhi.
So now let's start at the beginning. You're a through and through Bombay girl and born and studied in Bombay, had a very conventional life, engaged at 19, married at 21. You then completely kicked the stereotypical ball out of the window. Then I was reading about you, I was like, oh my God, she was engaged at 19, married at 21.
Absolutely.
And then what happened?
And then what happened is that I suddenly figured life was about my decision making also. Because it was an arranged marriage. I come from a very conservative family. We are 4 sisters, and my father believed that, his responsibility was to ensure that we study enough, adequate enough, and then get married and take care of our homes. So I was one of those who would say, who actually put her foot down and said, I would want to complete my graduation, Papa, before I marry. So he said, okay, works, but let the man, whoever you'll be getting you engaged to, decide that.
Wow.
Again, something which you wouldn't associate with me, but we did that. So at 19, we got engaged, and of course, his family also felt it would be better if I complete my graduation.
And
which
what
I
were
did.
you studying?
I was doing my commerce graduation from NM College. And by the way, the day I turned 21 was the day I got married. So we celebrate our anniversary and birthdays together. So I don't know, sometimes to celebrate, or should we just get at each other?
One gift less.
But I think I've lived more with him now than with my own parents, right?
Yeah,
So,
true. You've kind of grown up together.
grown up together.
And
literally.
you were selected for a leadership program at ISB from a pool of about 10,000 women.
No, this was about Goldman Sachs had decided was that they would provide scholarship for 10,000 Indian women who were entrepreneurs and who wanted to scale up and who wanted to get further in their businesses. They are small businesses that they have. And I used to run a boutique recruitment firm which was only catering to the media. I came from a media background. I was with Channel V and I gave it up because my husband was getting transferred to Kolkata at that point in time and I had a small baby. And I took a break. When I returned, I did realize that, there's a huge disconnect between HR firms and what media expects. I'm sure you would understand the long working hours, the different working hours, the different working standards. So the environment is not the typical corporate environment. So I started that. It took off very nicely. But I was struggling to scale it up. And that is when the 10,000 Women program, Goldman Sachs program with ISB, I came across one of these ads and I applied to that and I got in. I was a part of the first Mumbai cohorts that was selected. So yes, it was a very interesting thing. And this came after my second child.
Yeah.
And I pursued this and it was
Did it seem like
the interesting part is after pursuing this, I jumped into politics. So
yeah, I wanted to come to that. You said 2611 changed something within you and, and not just emotionally, but directionally. So how did that shift? This was a collective grief, but as a country, we all went through. But for you, it kind of steered you into a different direction. You wanted to actually go and raise funds for the families of the victims. Is that when you started your NGO also?
No, my NGO came much later, but it started with there's a friend of mine, Kiran Manral. She's a very well-known blogger. She's an author, and we used to be school gate mothers. As in, we used to wait on our children. Both the kids are studying together, and that is when 2611 happened. She was a blogger. She had a blogger network. I had my own blog, so she reached out to a lot of women bloggers and said we must do something. And I think the entire city was under, sharing the same grief, and wanting to do something, wanting to reach out. Of course, the Tata Group had, declared that they would support all the victims of terror attacks. But there was some like there was a blast just outside the airport, a taxi blast that happened. Then there were some people from the CST station who were also killed. So we handheld some of them. We used to pool in our funds together. It was to move out of word of mouth that we are doing something like this. Handheld them for about a year, and then the Tata Group took over. They were kind enough to take them over. But that kind of triggered this belief that even one person
Can make a
and
difference.
even a small contribution can make a difference. There was a street school which used to have work in one part of the Mumbai city. I requested them to come to closer to my home because there were many slums there, and we felt that children drop out, and then children are directionless. Both in Mumbai, most parents are working. Both parents are working, so they get misled, especially those who go to BMC schools or schools where they find it difficult to cope with language, math, science. So we started a support school where they were studying for 2 hours a day, and so that they just wouldn't drop out. And let's say a student was very weak and he just couldn't take to academics, we used to skill them. So that is how it began, the passion began, and then the Youth Congress entire movement came about.
So how did they reach out to you? Did they need to convince you? It seemed logical, like the next step to do.
So when they heard about the school, there was Bhavna Jain. She had moved from America to India at that time for the Congress Party, to work with the Congress Party. And I don't know how I got in touch with Bhavna, and Bhavna said, "Why don't you come for one of these events?" It was the Aam Aadmi Ki Sipahi events that they did, and I remember very distinctly that Kripa Shankar Singh ji was in the Congress, and he came and he was going to speak at that event. So she invited me. She was also a coordinator for the Youth Congress and bringing more people and talking to them about it. So I said, okay, it's happening in Bandra. She gave me a time which was 6 p.m. and I convinced my husband that let me just go see what this is and let's explore, because it gives me immense satisfaction to help people. Youth Congress saying they're going to take in people, but I'm skeptical about politics and I don't know where this will take me, but I would want to take this to a larger platform. And I remember going there at 6 p.m. and the entire hall was empty. There was just nobody. Right? And I'm wondering, have I come to the wrong venue or wrong place? And that was my first learning lesson that I got in politics, is that when they give you a 6 p.m. time, it only means you come by 8 p.m. Otherwise, you look foolish. So my husband dropped me and he said, look, I'll be hanging around Bandra. I'm not too excited about what you're doing. But since you want to do this and you want to hear Kripa Shankar Singh ji or whatever, so be it. And he calls me at 7. I'm like, I'm sorry, it's still not over. He calls me at 8. I'm sorry, it's not over. And then he just loses it, right? Okay, what is this? Why hasn't it? Because he gave you a time at 6 p.m. So that is how it started. Then there was an election and I became an assembly delegate. I later realized it was a non-administrative role, which was perfectly fine. It got me to think that probably I'll be able to understand how the process works. It was Gurdas Kamaji, who was in Mumbai Northwest MP at that time from the Congress Party, who thought, here's this person who's just coming from out of nowhere with no political background, and he kind of guided me in the sense, he used to tell me, look, I come here on weekends. I'm usually in Delhi for the parliament session, but I'm here on the weekends to understand the problems in the constituency to help. So come and understand what I do. That kept me engaged. So again, the same thing. He used to address some public rallies or public events. His office used to tell me 5 p.m. I used to be there sharp at 5 p.m. and realize that even the chairs are not. So they wait for the crowds to come in before they come in, right? So that led to a lot of discord between me and my husband, because he just wouldn't understand that why do people not work on time, the time given. So it took him a lot of time to adjust to the fact, but I still do end up reaching very early at rallies because it's so ingrained
in you. But you're so, married at a young age, raising two kids, no family backing, no political lineage. Was politics always a dreamed effort? I mean, your family didn't support it. So, I mean, did it seem like natural getting into it?
Not really. I mean, if you ask any Mumbaikar, the last choice that they will have is to enter politics.
Yes, I understand.
and
I've studied in Bombay, so I know how
So
this
you know
goes.
how it is. They would care more about the Hindi film industry,
Yeah.
the Hindi television industry, maybe cricket, maybe
Yeah.
business, maybe finance.
Yeah, fashion and
Hello,
politics is two kids that don't.
fashion and yeah, politics is just absolutely. So when it happened, my father was happy because my father is very political in his thought process. Somehow I feel that he wanted to at some point enter politics, but he realized that he had far bigger responsibilities to run the house, because which he didn't get into it. So he kind of encouraged me, and everyone else was kind of discouraging that why you even getting. I said, listen, let's just try where it takes me. But I'm really committed to the idea. If we don't get in and we don't understand how these systems work, it would be such a failure. Here's an opportunity that's come, and my family has been a Congress voter. So let me just try it. So that is how it began. It still began with baby steps, and there were times when my husband used to just totally give up, and he was like, please just give up whatever you're doing and get back to whatever your business was. But again, we pulled along. And they kept saying, "Give me another month, give me another month."
This
And
month
I
has really
realized he's
extended.
not giving up.
So, your role as a spokesperson, you became a spokesperson, led you to becoming popular very, very quickly. But that really came with a fair amount of baggage too. They were given the spotlight. Children were also very young at
Yes.
that point of time. Did they feel the absence? You've spoken a lot about your children having to, absorb the costs of your career.
Yes,
Were they
yes.
aware?
No, they were very much aware. They were that many times, for example, when my son was moving from one school to another, he carried out the entire process himself with absolutely no support coming from me, because I was somewhere else. I was in Delhi. I was working for most of my time in Delhi. Yes, but I do say my political trajectory has been very unconventional, because when I became the spokesperson, which is the national media panelist for the Congress Party, I did not know it. Congressmen did not know me. AICC did not know who I am. I did not know who in AICC is the one who's got me in the national media panel.
Okay.
And around midnight, my phone just started buzzing. And I'm wondering, why is everyone calling me? And we wrap up by 10 p.m. in our house. All of us. Put my phone on silent, and my husband's like, the phone's constantly buzzing. Can you just take the call? What is it? Turns out that there is a list that has come out of national media panelists. I happen to be one of them. So I did not know what it means. AICC did not even have my contact details. In the morning I was to travel to Calcutta with my husband, and I get a call saying that, can you send us your fax number? I was like, 1 second, who works on a fax number anymore? But at that time, AICC used to work on a fax number. We need to send you a hard copy of your appointment. And suddenly it hit me that I was a national media panelist, which even Kamath sir told me it's unheard of. That Congress party straight away from an assembly delegate to a youth Congress secretary is, straight away taken to a Delhi responsibility.
And you don't know who put your name there.
There were some social media projects that I was working on, because social media Congress was a total wipeout at that point in time. Nobody knew what social media is. They used to mock me. They used to think I'm wasting my time on a social media platform. And then suddenly they woke up to this, oh God, we are like really slow. Dr. Tharoor was quick on it. Omar Abdullah ji was there. Narendra Modi ji had taken a lead by leaps and bounds. And suddenly Congress rises and says, okay, we need to work on it. And then they realize that Priyanka's already been doing this work. And she's from the Youth Congress. So that is how it happened. I remember I was on a TV debate, NDTV Big Fight, Vikram Chandra. And I was just representing the Congress party because not many people were willing to go. And also because there was no official social media representation at that time. So I went there, and that's when I got a call from, and Dipinder Hooda ji was,
he was heading
days, from Youth Congress days, Dipinder was someone I was connected to. And he used to kind of guide me. But one day he called me and he said, I want you to speak to somebody. It was Digvijay Singh ji who spoke. And for me, it was like, wow. I mean, these are people I've seen on television. I've heard them. They've been in senior positions. And he told me that I really liked your debate, and we wish there were more Priyankas like you who can keep the party's front forward. And then nothing. And suddenly my name just comes up. and they're looking for my number. How do they get in touch with me? So, so yes, it was an unconventional way to grow. But yes, like the baggages that you speak about, as a mother, there's the guilt I'll always live with, that I did not see the best years of their growing up years. It was left
That's
on
a
my
difficult
husband.
one to get
That's
over.
the most difficult. I keep seeing this is one guilt I won't be able to get rid of. Not that my children ever told me. Never.
I was going to ask, do you think they feel it or we just carry it
we
more?
carry it more. And my son and my daughter tell me that for us, you are a matter of inspiration. But I don't feel that because there have been many spaces I was missing. And that is my feeling. My children have never told me that. And there were so many dinners I've missed, so many family functions I've missed, so many events in their lives I've missed. So yeah, that is one baggage. And the other baggage would probably be the unconventional trajectory. Also led to a lot of belief in, that, oh, she must have been up to something and that is why she's rising the way she has.
Yeah, that's
so the character assassination that comes with it.
I think that women have to constantly face that character assassination. But I was reading a very interesting study today from Forbes that the non-linear career path is actually the more sustainable career path for women to take. It's a Forbes study.
Oh, interesting.
And I found it very interesting because it's something like, we beat ourselves about it constantly because you are managing so many roles. So apparently that is the way to go.
I guess so. So I would be one of those examples. And then from the national media panelist to a national spokesperson, and then making me the co-convener. I was a convener then. Now I believe the Congress Party has co-conveners, but I was a convener, which was, again, there was no constitutional mandate for a convener in the communication department. It was so-called created for me. It came with no authority, very honestly, but it made me feel good that, look, I have some charm.
Let's talk about the elephant in every room, the party switch. And I know you've been grilled enough about it and enough has been said. But what I want to ask you, the story is very famous, what happened and the incident in Mathura. But what I've never heard is any of the boys' club who also left, they've never been asked this question. Why are women held to a higher standard?
This is a question I have in my mind too. In fact, just 2 days ago, I was recording a podcast and the first question they began with was that I was like, in my 6 years of having left a Congress, I have answered this several times over.
I was looking at your podcasts and I felt that's the only question which is being asked to you. And I'm like, I haven't heard it in any of the men's interviews.
So I keep asking them, have you asked Jitin this? Have you asked RPN this? Have you asked Jyotiraditya this? So they also tell me we've never got an opportunity to interview them. So
they have been interviewed enough.
I think there's a point where you decide that, it happened, there were circumstances. I chose to make that stance very, very clear that is one no-go area for me. I can't compromise on that. Because I have 2 young children. My daughter would learn to believe that it's absolutely okay to be silent and continue the way it is. And my son would believe that women will stay silent if you misbehave, right? So this was my choice to my children. And what am I leaving back for them in the sense as a woman who is in the political space? And I keep saying this repeatedly, but of course there are many narratives. Oh, she went because she was getting this. Oh, she went because she's upset about not getting an MP ticket. Oh, she went because she was asking for more. I never asked. I was only asking for respect. That was my only ask. And I can challenge anybody. Of course, there were people who used to come to me saying that, Priyanka, why don't you contest an MP? Tumhara time ja raha hai, tum samay mango, ye mango. I used to be like, okay, so मैंने किसी से सुना, मैंने कहा, okay, can I get a ticket? But not seriously, literally. Then someone told me, oh, you should Maharashtra MLC, free ho gaya. Why don't you? You know how it is in the Congress, right? It's a large party. Someone's coming and telling you, now let me go ask for this. And then I realized, no. That is reserved for minority. I can't ask you. Oh, and then it's over. Whatever time I've spent in the Congress party, I don't remember asking for general secretary, in charge, whatever. All I said was, I want a meaningful role. I don't see myself being a spokesperson all my life. And people in the television space also have a shelf life. You get tired seeing the same set of people, even if they are speaking the finest. But you get tired. And there are only so many words in your vocabulary that you can use every day to convince the people of this country, right? So my point was that there is much more I can contribute, not happening. But worse was that after 8 months of having addressed a problem, and yet again the problem coming up after 8 months, especially at the time of elections, was it was a decision I had to take. Do I take this decision before election or after election? That's the only time. When I felt that should I wait or should I still give my party this chance? But I decided no, there is no point in waiting. I have to move. And then after I resigned, I also said that this is something I have built for myself. Of course, the party gave me a platform, and I'll always be grateful to them. They gave me a platform, but they also gave me the platform because they believed I could do it. I had it in me, and I've proved it. Why should I let that 10 years of my life go? And I made that switch. I felt I'm going back to Maharashtra. My children are there, my husband's there, my parents are there, my entire extended family is there. Let me work out of Maharashtra. Let me
But you know,
seek
you
my
had to
space.
explain it. Like
Yeah.
you've often said that you are ambitious and you're really unabashed about it. But women still need to defend that ambition, explain it, soften it somehow.
Exactly.
You know, and stand to be judged for it constantly.
Yeah, so I have always noticed when men do it, look, this is the smartest political move ever of his life.
Yeah.
When a woman does it, oh, look at this opportunistic woman. How does this change? If it's good for him, it's good for me. It's good for a woman. And listen, women need to find that space somewhere
And make it.
simply because there are just so few of us. And if we give up, we'll continue to be that marginalized lot who's just waiting and hoping that one fine day the fine gates in 2029 would open and everybody would rush into claim space.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. Even young girls are looking at stories of success. Stories of those people
No, but
who made it.
I like what what you just said, that it was important messaging. And I think as parents, or as I think especially as mothers, we are constantly looking to do that. But you've very, very recently only now spoken about the emotional impact this whole incident and decision. You never spoke about it in the past, I think 4, 5, 6 years.
No,
And you just spoke that, you almost collapsed at that point of time.
Yes.
Was the betrayal too much?
It was just that it weighed a lot on my mind because there was so many
And
noise.
also because you'd given so much of yourself.
Yes, I had. And I can openly say this today that nobody in the Congress will ever say Priyanka didn't work hard enough. Yeah, so I don't speak about it because I still get emotional because it was a big decision. For someone who's a nobody to take that massive decision and be under the scrutiny of media and the people I was leaving behind, as well as the entire system I was going to embrace. Right? So there was so much scrutiny at that point in time. And then I was also looking at my children that have I failed them in any way?
Yeah.
So, so it all came together at the same time. And there was just one trigger point where someone said, was dear friend, but in the Congress party said, how selfish could you be? And that kind of triggered me into like, I have done so much. And the last word I get is how selfish I was. So anyway, so be it. It took me a lot of years to get out. And I always said I'll write it in my book. I will do it because speaking about it, even now, I must tell you, I did not even step into Mathura for 5 years. I didn't. My parents tried all their best. I had family functions in that city. But I somehow felt that I felt betrayed in that city. That's how I am.
But I completely understand, because I think it's again the mother factor, because when you're leaving your children, you kind of feel it has to be something substantial and worthwhile to do that.
Yeah.
Otherwise you've kind of let them down.
Yeah, also that after that there were some debates I used to go to, and the best part about when I joined Shiv Sena was Sir was very clear that you're not going to hit out at anybody. Neither can I. Because they've given me all the love and respect. There were some bad elements that does not mess up the entire party. It's just that I'm changing my stage of where I'm going to be working out of, changing that platform. So Sir was very open and he said, whenever you feel that you're uncomfortable, don't attend those TV debates. But there are some debates where people were coming at me, especially from the Congress party, who would say selfish, self-interest, ideology. I mean, if you talk about ideology, I just want to understand, I came to have more women in these spaces. I continue to do that. If there's anybody who's fought the loudest, even inside the parliament, it's me. And I don't want to take credit for it, but I'm just trying to put that perspective. If you talk about an inclusive idea of India, I am talking about it. But what is wrong is wrong. What is right is right.
Did you fear that the political establishment would never forgive a woman for choosing dignity over discipline?
See, there's so many places, so many factors when you're leaving a national party.
Yeah.
There are so many states who don't know my story. So many
Yeah.
people who've not heard my story.
Yeah.
So everyone has an opinion. Everyone
Yeah.
has a Twitter account.
Huh.
Everyone can say whatever. And you'd be shocked to know, Yasmin, I got to know much later that there were some people on social media were given the target to attack me, which was dismantled. But don't do this. I agree. There is a lot more explanation that we expected to give, and it also deters a lot many women to come into this space.
Yeah.
And of course, will they ever forgive dignity? They always look. They always look for no. This cannot be the reason. How can this be the only reason?
Yeah, no, that's across.
That's
I don't think
exactly.
women
Even in
women
corporate
choosing
houses,
yeah.
this cannot be the only reason. But you don't know what makes a woman snap. What makes her say, this is my tipping point? That was my tipping point. It was. And I tried. Let me also tell you, I did try that. Please address this concern. Please.
Yeah, it wasn't overnight.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even told that those people were reinstated. I only got to know through a third person that, look, there's a letter which has reinstated all these people. I was like, it doesn't work like this.
You felt humiliated.
Yeah. And I was told that, hold on, we will address this issue after the elections. Why? Why is my issue something that can be waited upon? And while everything else is absolutely okay, giving a ticket to the person who was creating the problem, allowing those people who were part of this group who were suspended to continue being there. So if everyone's got their space, so probably I'm out of my place. So I might as well find my own place.
You know, Shiv Sena didn't seem like an obvious choice, especially for someone with your, the liberal reputation. But then, since then, they have also rebranded and kind of redefined themselves in many ways. What did they offer you which others didn't?
It was very clear. I was coming back to Maharashtra, and it was Mumbai, the city that even Shiv Sena is very passionate about, and not what many people saw much later. That Shiv Sena was talking on issues, was changing how it perceives itself and how it was rebranding itself.
Are you a part of that change?
Yes, I'm happy to be part of that change, and we saw that. I was seeing Aditya was handling issues that were more urban, more related to the young, more driven about the climate, and also understanding urban development as a challenge. So he was talking issues which were very close to my heart as well. The plastic ban, the beach cleanliness, etc. And I thought to myself that here's someone who is talking about issues that really matter to the citizens of this country and citizens of my city and my state. Then why should I not align myself and be able to be a strong voice for that change that was happening? Not many saw it.
Yeah.
But I could see the transition happen because I was a Mumbaiker. I was following their work closely. And just made perfect sense for me, though, when they told me that, why don't you look at us? And it made just perfect sense for me.
Having said that, Shiv Sena didn't seem like a natural choice. They seem to have really stood by you. What has this new chapter taught you about politics and about people?
What it has taught me
You
is...
seem valued over there.
Yes,
it's very obvious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yasmin, you just got the right word. That they respect me.
Yeah.
They gave me the platform to be able to speak my mind many times. And you'd be surprised, many times I may have a very differing point of view from some stance that is being taken. But they're absolutely okay. And they continue to have me as a spokesperson. So, so that I think is something which comes only out of valuing somebody.
Yeah.
Right? So they have given me the platform. They've given me the ability to have a voice in a sense that which can make changes. Stood by some stances that I've taken.
Yeah.
Also, times where they felt that if I raise that particular issue, it would help. One thing which I would say, they've stood by me, and there's nothing that makes me feel that I'm anyway lesser valued than anybody else. I may not be the senior most person there, but at least they give me a voice. They may hear me out. They may dismiss that idea.
And I think that's important.
Yeah, that's most important.
You've gone from being a party spokesperson to being a Rajya Sabha MP. Have you ever in any moment asked yourself, is this really happening?
I remember when Sir came and told me, he was the chief minister then, he said, we are going to be sending your nomination, and I was filing it the last day. Where all of us as Mahavikas Agadi were putting it together. So I remember, unfortunately, Rajiv Satavji is no more, and Rajiv Satavji he was my first Youth Congress president, and he was always very encouraging even then. and Rajiv Satarji was also coming in as a member of parliament as part of the MVA. And Yashomati Thakurji was a friend who had worked with in Karnataka elections. And she said, listen, one patta is Shiv Sena, the other one has to be Congress, because she's, traversed that journey with us too. At that time, it was not really something that it was happening. This was a reality. I was going to be entering the parliament, right? So it was very interesting, very exciting. And I was like this excited person that I need to prove myself. My party is giving me this position. I will need to live up to it. So I've only tried, not just the party, but to be the voice of those who believe that they are at the margins of the society, or they feel that this issue is not important enough, or for them it might be the most important issue, and I've raised those voices. May have grab more eyeballs because of things that I've spoken unconventionally, conventionally, but if it gets done, it gets done.
Yeah, you've spoken, said something that everything happens for a reason. Has then that been your philosophy throughout, or is this more political
Absolutely.
insight?
No. There's nothing political. Like many people tell me, oh, look, 26-year Rajya Sabha tenure is getting over. We don't have numbers. I was like, what is destined is destined. And whatever, totally. I think I'm a child of destiny myself. Over the years, I've seen many people work for years and years and years. And sometimes it goes unacknowledged. And here I am, where I felt that, like, while it's an unconventional journey, it is also a journey which has come through luck, through hard work, and through what was destined. I am a strong believer of destiny. And that's not changing. And whatever happens in my life happens for a reason, because good, bad, ugly, I'll see it through.
The women's reservation bill, what do you think about it? Symbolic or substance?
It is so unfortunate, and I raised this in the parliament, that when Sri Rajiv Gandhi introduced this and then it became a reality post his unfortunate attack and his death, it was implemented immediately.
Immediately, yeah. Yeah.
No law in the world comes post-dated
Yeah.
or comes on the back of conditions. Like, once let the delimitation happen,
Yeah.
let the census happen. The census, of course, is long overdue. But delimitation is such a contentious topic that people, various states down south, will be rushing to the Supreme Court. And if delimitation doesn't, basically what they've said is, delimitation, say from 545 seats, we will go up to 700 odd seats or 800 seats. That is when we'll accommodate you. The fight was accommodate us in this 545.
Yeah, true.
That hasn't happened.
Yeah, but even with this deferred bill, how many years now?
29.
29. So, but do you think we even have the pipeline of trained ready leaders? What are we doing to,
Exactly.
like, suddenly what will happen? Like, women
No,
will just,
suddenly you will
like
have,
you were saying, enter parliament
so
and
suddenly
hold
you will have everyone scrambling for same women who are in that space, right? There is no work being put in to prepare them, to give them the time, because you also don't know which constituencies will become reserved, right? So who are you letting the space for? And you will also see a lot of push for the wives of the MLAs, for
That's
the
what
family
will be.
members
That's
of
what happens in
MPs.
reservation, no?
So this
Unfortunately.
is what initially will happen, because you're not creating a pipeline. You're not going to tell a sitting MLA who's a male that, okay, listen, now since it's become a woman's constituency, you have done a great job, now just move on and we're giving it to her. The political parties will also say, अच्छा चलो अपनी wife को ले आओ, wife के नाम से तुम संभाल लेना, because you're not creating a pipeline. So this is one challenge which I can openly speak about, simply because announcement, talia, happiness, shared happiness, women are feeling happy. But nobody's asking,
No, but
where
it's
are the
not
women?
thought through.
Who are the women?
Yeah.
How are
yeah.
you training them?
Yeah.
Which constancy in your mind you believe? And the other problem I feel, which is something that a party leader, founder used to say, Sri Balasaheb Thakurji, that make 33% mandate not in constituencies, make it in political parties. 33% of tickets that you'll give will be to women, and leave it on the party to decide which constituency. So what happens is they're also fighting with their male colleagues. So let's say a Congress party has chosen a male candidate, while the BJP feels they have a woman candidate as part of their 33% reservation. The male and the woman fight, and they decide who's the leader, right? And who wins. In this particular case, there'll be women fighting women.
Yeah.
Because all that particular seat is reserved, so everyone will find a woman candidate to put in, and may the best woman win. So his belief was, introduce 33% reservation in political parties. It's a mandate, otherwise you get deregistered.
And also it's reservation by rotation, right?
Right.
So then I feel it's not thought out completely.
Yes. So
That
after 10 years, after 15 years of freeze,
or 5 years.
or 5 years,
Yeah.
it can change again.
Yeah.
You suddenly have some new constituencies. So even to build that cadre would be a bit of a challenge. So maybe if those concerns could be addressed, unfortunately, I only get 4 or 5 minutes to speak. Even for such a historic bill, I got only 4 minutes to speak. And there was not so much I could cover, but this was one important point, which if it was adhered to, even regional parties giving 33%, and leave it to the parties, whichever constituency you want to give it to. But it should have 33%. That would have worked beautifully, actually.
How do you see your role in shaping what women and politics and the role can look like?
So my role, I think mine has been a very minuscule role for first term, and I've tried to do what I can. But I think women in politics need to have their own voice. We are, even now, we are bound by our political parties. Like I said, I'm grateful that I'm in a party which gives me the voice for women and says that your stance is our stance. That's the beauty. That's the kind of responsibility they've given me. But in case of many political parties, especially national parties, women's voices are not their own.
Yeah.
And they are bound by the rules and regulations. Like, for example, as much as I may have a disagreement with Kangana Ranaut, etc., and whatever she speaks, however, she has been called up multiple times that follow the toe the party line.
Yeah.
Right? So, of course, she creates an whatever controversy or whatever she does, but she's asked to toe the line. Many times when I was entering the parliament and like I was this excited person with ideas, brimming with ideas, I said I should have a caucus for women where we rise above our politics and fight for gender equality and gender spaces. But I realized that women were limited to the saying that, listen, we also have male voters. What gender equality, we keep talking about, how do we address that? So that is one thing women in politics can play. Be bold. Your parties also need you now. They need the 33%. So if you are not creating more space, then we are failing ourselves.
I wanted to ask you these two things. First, why do you choose to align yourself so much with the men's issues? And why do you think other women politicians don't do that? I've read about you, forming this caucus and wanting to do this, which never really happened.
Not happened because they did not come on board.
Yeah.
See, the problem is that we women end up fighting for that same
Piece of
share
pie.
piece of pie. Increasing the size of the pie that we are owning. So that is one thing I feel that we should be really working towards. Again, because many women feel grateful, and of course, gratitude is one thing, but contribution after that gratitude towards policy changes, towards being the voice of women. So if you remember, and I spoke about it in some recently, I don't think that podcast has come out. When Smriti Irani ji, as the Women and Child Welfare Minister, stood up and spoke the way she did about Srimati Sonia Gandhi. I feel, personal view, maybe trolled, but one of the most disgraceful act of a woman towards another woman.
You're cringy.
Yes. Let's take her seniority aside. Let's fight for ourselves. If someone, let's say your party has given you this job to do, you can handle it better. That is my ask of politics and women politicians. It's a tough world for women anyway. It's a tough space for women in politics anyway. They live through character assassination. They live through a life of, not getting enough opportunities. But when you're once there, be a collective strength for the rest of the women to follow. And of course, people will say, oh, look, Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary called her Rashtrapatni. Mistake.
That was a language thing.
That
Come
was
on.
even if, let's say, deliberate. Let's say deliberate for 1 minute he wanted to. He apologized. But for you to create that spectacle, I don't think it went down well with any woman in India. And the only reason I've given this example, not because of who I'm talking about, but she had a bigger responsibility as a woman and child welfare minister. The selective silences, the over-the-top outrage is something women should desist from now. Speak up whenever you need to.
Women politicians don't speak up for women's issues. It's like that, there was a phase when women didn't want to be called feminists. It's almost like that you don't want to speak about any women's
because our
issues.
voters are
Yeah.
also males. So I'm sure males will also appreciate the fact that you're raising the power structure even in their homes. And today, women are a key factor in voter turnout and even their voting choices. So let's not discount that fact.
You've spoken about mentoring young girls in politics, and what's missing in the way that we are preparing women leaders? I mean, I don't think most political parties are even frankly preparing, like we discussed.
Right. So
but
Aditya ji was very keen that we start this pipeline where, because as local bodies, we need to have that representation. So you've already created a pool at the very base level. Now you will have to promote them upwards to aspire for, legislative assemblies and parliament. And when they vacate the space, you bring in new talent. So that was the idea that we had initiated. Aditya ji was very keen that we create that. So there were many people we identified. Unfortunately, we ourselves went through a massive split in the party, and lots of women moved from here to there. And we are still finding a footing as far as the Mahila Agadi team is concerned. So we're still figuring out how to take this forward with the Yuva Sena as well as this. At the same time, I also tried a program which was Prathamti. In Marathi means she first, a woman first. And what were we doing? We were training them. These are women who are just graduates. Who just graduated and will do their masters sooner or later. But in that interim, we were training them by telling them how the parliamentary proceedings work, how policy works, how they can participate in policy narratives, etc. Then I got them to intern with women members of parliament, because many times they don't get LAMP fellows, to work with them. And then they were working with Observer Research Foundation to understand research and in-depth research and finding out the right from the wrong and to shape narratives. So my idea at that point was that how do we create a pool of women who are confident, may not be in politics, may not be in policy, but have a voice and are not bullied by those voices that try to shout you down. It was a very successful program. Unfortunately, because of what happened with Mahua, and the password issue, etc., that happened in how she was disqualified, women MPs started to be a little skeptical about the fellows that we were putting. And it just got derailed. And probably once, in case I don't come back to the parliament, which whatever happens will happen, I will probably spend more time in creating this leadership, because women are working. Of course, there are many groups working on it. There are women working in silos. So the reason why I speak more about women is because in every single narrative, every single intersectionality, women are the first ones to be impacted the most. Women and children.
Yeah, with any
And if we
crisis,
don't
anything.
consciously bring them in our conversations, in the parliament, we are totally invisibilizing them. So women can't be just voters. Women can't be just vote seekers. You cannot be just कि हमने उनको बेटी पढ़ाओ बेटी बचाओ गैस दे दी सिलेंडर दे दिया पैसे दे दिए महीने के 2,000 दे दिए. No, they are going to be impacted by everything. Whether it's your climate change, whether it's wars, whether it is economic downturn, everything impacts them. Tech, digital spaces. So that is something which I feel that.
So, who are the women politicians that you look up to? Who have stood by you, and those you feel have kind of failed you?
I think who stood by me, I think Jaya Bachchan ji has stood by me through thick and thin. And of course, there was a video going viral, but that's how she is. And then there's, of course, Supriya Sule has stood by me. Many times she also tells me, listen, calm down, ignore a lot of things. Then Mahua Moitra has stood. And I think more or less generally, I just feel there's hesitation when it's women across the political party lines. And let me down could be some women who just feel, push that narrative forward of character assassination, etc. I won't name names, but there have been many women who gossip and sit and they talk about something like this, which can be very vicious. Consciously understand what you're doing.
You said women have to be thick-skinned to survive in politics. But does that thickness have to come in the cost of softness, or can they coexist? I feel that in you now.
I just get emotional and then I end up, trying to control myself. I've tried to be as thick-skinned as possible.
I think you've come to a place where you're yourself now.
Yes, exactly. I've decided, okay, I get emotional on a certain thing, so I am, accept me. But yes, there was a moment in time where women were made to believe that, listen, Only if you look like a certain way or you behave in a certain manner, you'll be able to exude that power. But now the women are more real. Whether I look at Supriya, whether I look at Mahua Moitra, whether I look at Jayaji shouting at me or they're more real. There's no pretense. There's no
That's very refreshing.
yes, there's no
Yeah.
attempt to try and be something else or to try and show something else. So that is something which is beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it's part of
I
our
think mature
journey also.
democracy and women
Yeah.
being in these spaces.
You posted a lovely red lipstick selfie and owned that place. I loved it. Do you know why do you think a woman's appearance still generates more headlines than her policies? I was, by the way, Googling, and I know that your attendance and the issues you've raised, there should be tremendous thing on, and I couldn't find as much. Everything which kept popping up is a red lipstick selfie. So I was like, I have to ask her about it, though I've been following her work for like ever.
No, I think photos end up going more viral than your work, literally.
Yeah.
Especially when women are concerned, but which is unfortunate.
Huh.
If you look at my PRS record, so the PRS maintains a record of parliamentarians, and my attendance has been 100%.
Yeah, I
Except
read
for
that.
barring one where
Yeah.
I was suspended for a session.
Yeah, what happened there?
Nothing. I mean, it's also, a lot of insider decisions are taken on the basis of who is exuding power, right? And how the power structure works. On the last day of the parliament session, there was a sudden revised list of business which was sent to us. The list of business is usually decided in a BAC and sent out, but they revised it, and it was already decided that one particular insurance bill will not come up for discussion. But they brought it up for discussion on the last day of the parliament session. So we were all up in arms about it, and we all went to the well of the house and we were screaming. And that was perhaps my first and last entry in the well. And someone gave me a piece of paper. I was also very mindful of the fact that that piece of paper cannot be the bill that is being introduced. So I took a blank piece of paper and I tore it. And that was caught on the CCTV, but that was not the only thing that happened. There were marshals who were pushing and shoving women, male marshals doing that. That was conveniently not shared with the public. What was shared was that we are tearing papers and we are behaving the way we are. A lot of selective CCTV footage was leaked. Again, retrospective, you can't suspend anybody, but they applied the Retrospective Act that when the new session began, they applied the law in retrospective to suspend us for the upcoming session. I remember in a fit of rage coming out and everybody making a mockery of that particular video. I came out and I was like screaming that you cannot mess around with my career. Blah, 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 blah. I gave it to a television channel. And the next minute I see it on Twitter, Khisyani Billi Khamba Noche, look how outraged she is, this is what you do when you behave badly inside the parliament, you're a disgrace as a parliamentarian. But I was seething out of anger because it was something that we hadn't got a chance to explain ourselves. B, selective footage decided who's guilty, who's not. We were not shown the entire footage. And C, that there was a pick and choose that happened on who's getting suspended.
Yeah, how many people was there? How many
13 of us were suspended together, but all 13 of us would wait every time the parliament starts at 11 a.m. So from 11 a.m. to whatever time the parliament was functioning, we used to be at a dharna outside the Gandhi statue. So I have learnt a lot from Mahatma Gandhi. In those days, entire session we were suspended. We were given this opportunity to apologize, which we refused because there was no fair trial that happened. You just decided who you wanted to suspend. So that was the only blot in my, the parliamentary records. But otherwise, I've committed myself totally to the cause I was given.
What are the bills that you are most proud of? I was reading about you've spoken about anema in children, which is not a very popular topic. And I also saw a male member of parliament talking about the potato in the samosa. That's what they're raising.
0 hour intervention, standard size of samosa, standard price of
standard
samosa.
size of samosa. And I was like, is this genuinely happening? Which bill are you most?
No, I'd say, okay, there are private members' bills that I've introduced. One was for the aircraft safety bill. Passenger rights bill for, airlines usually ends up giving them a short change for any cancellation, rebooking, refund. Everything takes off all your money. So even if you spend, let's say 10,000, what you end up getting is probably 800 rupees back. So those are bills I've introduced. But one I was really passionate about was to create a climate change council that would be headed by the Prime Minister of India. It generated a lot of interest even when I was visiting University of Chicago as part of their EPIC program, Energy Policy Institute program. It generated a discussion on it, and I've participated in a program where they were trying to understand what I was proposing. What I was proposing is that the Prime Minister should be leading a council which has climate scientists, people who understand climate change. There are environment ministers of all the state, because every single state, the environment is a state subject. So not many prioritize it. So Himachal may prioritize it. A conscious Maharashtra's chief minister might prioritize it, but many choose development over development ecological sensibility. So let it come under the prime minister. Let him convene like a GST council. Let them come put their point of view forward and find solutions, and solutions which have best practices worked. So that was the idea. Unfortunately, in India, no private member's bill has ever turned into an act. But issues I have raised, whether it was the bully buy Suli deals, which got immense support, as well as we managed to ensure that those people went behind bars and turned out to be kids who were 24 years old, 21-year-olds, who were studying, and they did not realize the consequences of what they were doing on digital platforms.
How do you choose these topics? I mean, you're not choosing the most popular one, but still more, impactful, which affects smaller constituencies of people.
Absolutely. See, the idea also is to send a larger message that, listen, this topic may be heard of only by so and so people, but it has a larger impact. For example, I got a lot of pushback from young people when I said that I will raise the Ranveer Allahabadiya issue.
Yes, I wanted
in
to
the
ask you
standing
about
committee,
it.
in my standing committee. My point was not about trying to silence any voice. My point was, we are talking about creators economy, content economy, etc. But we also need to understand that as citizens, as people who are doing business, so if you do run foul of, the activity that you're carrying, there are consequences. Unfortunately, the content creators are not realizing that when they keep saying, oh, it's my freedom of speech also comes with certain responsibilities. You cannot brush it off as saying, oh, it's my freedom of speech. There are a lot of people who are consuming your content.
Yeah.
You will have to take the onus for it. And also, there's a ripple effect. So, here's someone who's a celebrity who's saying, talking like this. We do not realize that even in towns and villages where data is now available so cheap, and they have mobile phones and smartphones, and they're consuming this content, they believe that if we have to go viral, this is what we do. They end up doing it in their languages. So effectively what you're doing is creating a society which is saying that, okay, freedom of speech, but no responsibility. We have content, but a problematic content. So that was my idea. I did not want to scapegoat anybody, but please understand, you cannot just run away by saying, well, this is my freedom of speech. So a lot of my daughter's friends and all, wrote to her saying that, why is your mom doing this? Why is your mom doing this? Samay Raina especially, there are a lot of Samay Raina fans, even my nieces are Samay Raina fans. I was like, then you must tell him to be conscious about his content. Let's be serious about what we're doing. You don't joke about autistic children. You don't joke about deaths, even if it's dark humor. Dark humor can be handled in many ways.
No, but you're right, because there's, perpetuated down the
Yes,
line.
and it goes down the line.
Yeah, yeah.
So I was coming from that space. So not very popular, but has to be done.
You were a very vocal and popular part of the delegation which went to the different countries after Operation Sindoor. And I don't know how successful that was, but you've also been then very vocal in Parliament talking about the cricket series which is opening up with Pakistan. So how do you feel at one point here the opposition is putting all support behind the government, and then you come back where we are playing cricket with Pakistan?
No, I was very clear in my mind about one thing. My journey into political space also began after the terror attacks. It had a deep impact on a lot of minds in Mumbai. It changed my career trajectory. So I know that we will have to hold Pakistan to account. And when I was given this responsibility, I also am a member of the opposition. In my 4-minute intervention, I said I had several questions in my mind about Pahalgam.
But you still went.
I still went because the larger story was about, we cannot face this terrorism all the time. You cannot keep derailing our economy because of the terrorism that's emanating outside of Pakistan into my nation. So I said, Prime Minister of India is saying, an all-party meeting is saying that we will support whatever decision the government takes at this point. And if that multi-party delegation is one idea, I will support this idea. If it is about exposing Pakistan. I had questions in my mind about Pahalgam. A, how did they get into India? You talk about national security, you talk about John de denge POK ke liye, and then these terrorists just walk into my country, shoot down 26 people. You should have been very alert ever since General Asim Munir said what he did. He made it a very poisonous, toxic speech about Hindus versus Muslims, how they're different.
And that was trending.
And it was trending,
Yeah.
you knew about it, yet you were not alert about it. And the pattern that was followed was similar. Right. I would say that it was the maturity of the Indians that we all stood united and said, please pay Pakistan back in the same coin. We are not standing divided, we stand united that we need to. So, in that spirit, we said we will go abroad, we will talk about the valor of our soldiers, our armed forces, and the terror emanating out of Pakistan. But when we come back home, we are asking questions.
And that had not been answered.
And I said this on all six, all my 6 speeches that went viral. I said, I'm a very vocal member of the opposition. And by the way, I went to the Western European countries, and even there, they really appreciated the fact where they said, we've seen a lot of videos coming out of Indian Parliament, where there's so many disruptions that happen at times. How are you all standing together? So, like, that is in itself is a message that we've had enough of terrorism across governments, across political parties.
Doesn't it anger you now? The cricket series.
You can see I'm the most vocal about it because
you like pick up an intercom.
I sound like a hypocrite that I went to various nations and I said, hello, no trade with terror, no talk with terror, no platform we will discuss. We will only discuss POK, we will only discuss terrorism. And then you say, okay, now let's play cricket. Tuck, 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 make money over it. Play with our emotions. You're playing with our emotions. Why does India-Pakistan match get so much eyeballs? Because those are emotions at play. Whose emotions? Over whose blood have we lost? Our fellow Indians who trusted this government when they went to Pahalgam. They trusted this government to believe that they'll be safe. And then you say, okay, now we will beat them in the cricket match and we've avenged our deaths. Sorry, it's unacceptable. I sound like a hypocrite. How will I answer to my conscience that I was there and now you're playing cricket? You're making some exceptions.
And you spent a good month, more than that.
You're making, that was about a 15, 18-day tour. But I had other assignments that I was going for, which was my own personal invitation that I had got from other countries. But the point is that you cannot have it in bits and pieces. When it suits us, we engage. When it doesn't suit us, we won't engage. So please don't do this. Don't. And if you're saying Operation Sindoor is ongoing, then what is this? So I'm very vociferously speaking about it because I think that is my responsibility towards my nation.
You once said that you're spiritual, not religious. In a political climate obsessed with religion, what does that really mean?
I just wish I could explain the nuances of spirituality versus showing overtly religious leanings. So I'm spiritual. I know the gods I worship. I know how I engage with my belief. But I don't need to be wearing it on my sleeve, or I do not need to wear a certain color or dress in a certain way or keep talking about it all the time. While extreme overt talking about your religion only makes you a hypocrite, because even our religion tells us that it's your private space. Do it in your private space. So I believe in that, and I am extremely, like I said, I believe in destiny, I believe in karma, I believe in dharma. Probably I've been brought up that way, raised that way.
Most of us.
Everyone is, right? So every one of us is. So to wear your religion on your sleeve and make this about us versus them, it goes even against the value system of what Hindu religion is about. So that is what I said. And unfortunately, we are living in times and nuances are totally misunderstood. So for example, I remember someone asked me on a podcast that who is a person you think is a good politician. Good politician does not become favorite politician. Good politician means someone who knows his politics.
Yes.
Someone who knows how to win the mandate and do that. I was speaking it from that context and I thought people would understand. But that clip went viral. Oh, look, she's moving towards the sun. Oh, look, she's wearing an orange sari today, moving to the sun. Oh, look, she's part of the delegation, she's moving to the BJP. So that kind of nuance is totally lost. There were times when people used to, different parties, different ideas, after having a heated discussion in the parliament would meet in the central hall. Now we don't even have a central hall. Everything stands so divided. Where do we converge?
What did it mean by the rise of the Chunavi Hindu? What's a Chunavi Hindu?
What is that?
A Chunavi Hindu. I heard you said
That
something.
is that you start wearing saffron, you start talking saffron, you start becoming that, oh my God, I know my religion better than you do. You don't come and preach to me what I know. You don't even know what I know. And you will tell me that only because you are, you are a tilak dhari or something and you can do it. I can very well without the tilak. I can do it with the bindi, without the bindi. I can wear it. I can do it in my sari. I can do it without my sari in my jeans. So you will not tell me how to follow my religion. You will not come and see. This is where intolerance rises, and our religion has never been about intolerance. So this is what I mean by Chunavi Hindu, where there's suddenly this display of love and affection and religion, etc., and then choosing
Affection to nahi hota hai.
affection. It's all disaffection basically. But I mean, you showing that I'm so passionate about my religion that I become intolerant to anyone else's. That's a Chunavi Hindu for me. You remember your religion only when there is an election coming. And why should you even be talking about your religion? There are 1,001 issues in my country which is being faced in equal numbers. But I would say by majority. Unemployment, more the majoritarians will face it. I mean, Hindus, by the virtue of being more in numbers, will face unemployment, will face rural distress, will face economic distress.
But this is logic.
Logic
speaking,
hota hai na,
na?
wo logic missing, it
हाँ.
goes out of the window and you're talking about every other thing. But the issues that matter, आज मैं कहती हूँ अगर 10 गरीब हैं, उसमें से 8, क्योंकि 80% हमें है उसके लिए नहीं, पर 6 से 7 तो हिंदू घर ही होंगे. ज़्यादा फिर भी गरीबी 6-7 घरों में ही होगी. So, I mean, if you think of it, so that is what I mean by Chunavi Hindu, where you use your religion opportunistically to collect votes, to divide narrative, and create a very poisonous, toxic environment.
You know, you've taken on trolls, stood up to bullies, and defended your politics. What's been harder, being a woman in politics or being a woman on Twitter?
I think being a woman on Twitter is easier because you can totally give them a hard time. I've never been cowed down by these trolls, and when you hit back in such a way that they don't really get back to you. Recently, someone said if changing ships was an art, she would be Pablo Escobar. I said if being an idiot was an art, you'd be the most prized possession. Right? So I do respond at times because I just feel that I have to. But handling it on Twitter is much easier than navigating the push and pulls of politics. You don't even know who's suddenly come and stabbed you in the back or went and gossiped about you and said something. Because I remember when I came to the parliament, I used to go to the central hall and all the regalia is laughing, where's the party, where's this, where's that. And suddenly I used to see the same rumor coming in a very evil way back to me to show that, oh, look, in a manner to show that she's up for only fun. So I realized that the hard way. So navigating this and you're talking amongst people, there's somebody sitting there and somebody taking it another way and pushing it. Oh, I heard Priyanka say something. So it became such a toxic chamber of coming back to me in a very negative way of what I was.
You don't care about that.
I stopped caring. करो जो करना है, you get happiness in it, कर ले. जो मेरे बारे में कहना है, अगर you earn 2 rupees out of it, earn that 2 rupees. If that makes your family happy, if that makes your blood pressure go low or if absolutely fine and makes your heart healthier, do it.
You know, we were talking about being on Twitter, and you spoke about your daughter was once, and you threatened, and you never backed down even at that time. What did it take to show up at that point of time?
No, I just felt that you need to draw some lines. You attack me, issues, etc. I'm in the public space. You do what you want to, but don't bring my children into it. And I've seen such dirty, filthy stuff on YouTube written about me. You won't even imagine that YouTube allows such content to continue being there without me having to go after them and tell them to take it down. But anyway, there are insinuations, etc. But I draw a line where it comes to my daughter. And my family who's not into politics, not in the public space. And on the basis of some meme that was put out about me, some quote attributed to me, the person went out and put out this threat. And that is when I said I'll use full force of law to ensure that you pay for this. And the person turned out to be someone from Rajasthan running a shop along with his brother, got from there. So they need to understand the real life consequences or what they do. And that was the attempt. And even if it ends up becoming an example for someone who's facing this, I'd rather do it and make women understand that there are enough laws in place. Just that, but of course, like they say, you manage to get access because you know people, but it's not like that. Now, digital spaces also have become very important, and the police forces take it on an urgent basis. You can file a case online. So that is something where I draw a line, and that person was caught, brought to Mumbai. And by the way, the case is still ongoing. It hasn't closed.
Now, you've spoken about your family and your husband, and it's a very stereotypical situation, and being married so young, but it seems he's really stood by you.
Absolutely. I mean, I wouldn't be one tenth of, and he was just so upset about my choice of getting into
And he
politics.
still supported.
And he did. And I must share this because I've never shared this with anybody. There was a point where he said that, we don't come from a political background. And there was a, point where we were not converging and having a conversation on this. He said, we don't come from political background. I don't have tons of money. He was working at that time and he just got into his own business. If you don't have enough money to sustain your political career and you're traveling up and down and you're working 24/7, it'll take you nowhere. I haven't seen any story in this country of women who have worked hard and have reached where you are aspiring to reach. And my aspiration, I will say it repeatedly, was always the parliament. That I will get to the parliament.
You were clear.
Oh, I was very clear. And so I was offered that, look at assembly, etc. I said, no, I see myself in the parliament. And he said, she's never going to get there. And there was a point where we were not talking to each other and he wanted me to give up my politics. And that's when my younger brother, I mean, he's so mature in the head that he had to intervene and he said, okay, let's decide on a time frame. Because Vikram was very clear, this cannot go endlessly. With no results, nothing. And 10 years after she's given her life to it, suddenly feeling she has nothing. She's not given enough time to the home, not given enough time to her business. She will live to regret it all her life. So can you someone sit down with her and explain to her that jo junoon mein kar rahi hai will lead her nowhere because there have been no such examples. So my brother sat me down and he said, Priyanka, you will have to work on a timeline. So I remember committing to my brother. I give it 2 years. Tell him to give me 2 years. If I don't do well in politics, I will give it up without even complaining. But give me my 2 years. He stuck to that. I stuck to that. And then he had no other option but to support me because I managed to do something in those 2 years, right? Which is as a spokesperson, I created a profile for myself. That's what he realized. Okay, this is it. This is my time to support her and stand by whatever she has started to do and whatever she wants to achieve. And it's been a huge support system.
Yeah,
Right?
I think it takes to be a special kind of a man to let the woman shine, honestly.
Absolutely. Of course, it comes with its ups and downs. Of course, he does sometimes, get mad at me. Sometimes he gets equally frustrated that, it gets difficult to, manage. Sometimes the daughter is being difficult, sometimes the son is being difficult. But he stood through all of these challenges in my life and shared my lows, my highs, been a great guide, been a support system, been my, someone I can just speak my mind, cry in front of, laugh in front of. We may not have had we may not have had a lot of holidays together. We may not have had good time with each other in the sense the family time together. But he just understood that this is a charge he had to take and allow me to do it, which is beautiful. And now he manages a lot of my sister. So many times I don't even enter the kitchen at times. So, I don't even see what's in the kitchen. And he comes to Delhi and he totally, whenever he comes to Delhi, he takes charge and he's like, kya lana hai, kya karna hai, and all that.
Now he's used to that role.
He's like very happy. So he's used and he's the authority now. Poor guy, he's also working, right? Yeah, so working and also taking control of that simply because, and another person who's helped me a lot. I was 16 when this Nepali person came to help in our house. He was from Nepal with my mom's house, at my mom's house. When I joined politics, again, it was getting so difficult because my daughter was so young to trust someone who'd be able to take care of my child. I remember my mother feeling so upset, but having to take this decision that we call him Shankar, let Shankar come to you so that you are at peace when you're working. She had to part with him. And he's been, so when I was 16 and now I'm 46, 3 decades of seeing me see my children grow. He's been around. So those are like the supporting pillars.
You went to see Pathan as a mark of solidarity. Why was it so important to do that?
I think it's very important because things that are being divided on the basis of religion and boycott calls are being made on the basis of who belongs to which dharm is absolutely, 21st century India doesn't need that. A 21st century India needs a thriving economy for all. And the boycott was very selective, was aimed at one person, a person whom we've all grown up loving, seeing, and understanding romance from. I was like, no, you can't do this to Shah Rukh Khan movie. That was my mark of protest, that you cannot just say. And I was so glad when that movie became a super hit. And also it failed a lot of these, boycott calls that come for movies, especially on the basis of your religion. And if I remember correctly, after that, nobody's tried much. They do keep trying in bits and parts. That was a very important call to take, that we need to stand in solidarity for our entertainment industry. We are seeing how Bollywood movies were up for, being Hindi cinema. I'm sorry, many people don't like it being called Bollywood. But Hindi cinema movies were being targeted, came under attack and said, oh, it belonged to a particular community. Then, of course, there was this entire toxic environment being spoken, then Nepo kids, then about suicide of one, hardworking actor, unfortunate suicide. All of that mixed into something which was damaging the industry. And Pathan came around the same time. So I had to stand in solidarity for my city, for the film industry, for the people in the film industry. I don't engage with any people from the movie industry, by the way. I must have met Shah Rukh Khan twice, and I've always been fangirling. But he's such a gentleman. But I don't go out of my way to meet people, though I come from Mumbai. But just that I felt that that was a mark of acknowledgement that we cannot let hate decide what works and what doesn't work.
But also as a mother, no, did you feel that what was done to the child was incorrect?
Exactly. And I've written columns on it. I remember standing in solidarity for that child too. That imagine a father so such a public figure, powerful, and he couldn't go meet his child. He chose not to meet, and having to go through that struggle just because of who you are. And it moved me no end. And then I started to think, today it's his child, tomorrow it could be mine, because I'm a member of the opposition. It could be anybody's child. And how can you spoil their lives? And I went after even that person, who was acting like a character tha, movie character, Singham. There were reels of him of Singham, which I'm sure it was his PR company doing it. Dude, do your job. You didn't pass your IPS for making reels. I'm seeing a lot of these IAS officers also do that. I don't want to speak too much, but come on, of course I make reels too. but that does not define my work.
You once said politics is about people and not power. Do you still believe that?
Yes, it will always be, for me at least. Many people tell me that, oh, listen, you will have to continue. Oh, what does that even mean? You can continue to raise the voice of the people wherever you are. As a spokesperson of Congress Party, I think I did decently well to get people to hear what I had to say. So it's not really the position you're in. It's the intent with which you're in there, is what I have strongly believed in.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Next 5 years, contributing to my nation, if not through the parliament, then through various other platforms available to me. I have been in the foreign policy space for over 10 years. I've been India's voice globally in various platforms. I've been part of the Munich Security Conference, ACYPL. I get invited. In fact, in September onwards, I would be traveling again. It's not like this parliament delegation was the be-all end-all for me. I have been continuously in engagement with the world, which not many people know of. Not that it matters. But this is something that gives me satisfaction that I'm going and telling India's story to the world. And that matters to me. And India's story is not about its government. India's story is about its people and our ability to be able to be successful in whatever way we can and strive harder for another day. So that is the story I take to the world, and I will continue to work in this space, of course in politics, of course actively engaged in politics, and yeah, that is where I see myself. But I won't be silenced, and I won't go into silence zone also.
What gets Priyanka Chaturvedi really angry?
Angry? Oh, anything can anger me. You can ask my Dharmendra ji has been working with me for 5 years, ever since I began. He knows I'm such a stickler about my issues and some no-go areas, some boundaries. So, and I get so mad at him at times, and he's the only one who can take that because, uh, and anything, sometimes people so easily cross boundaries. They do not realize. When I've told you a no, it's not just about some ideas beyond your comfort space, but also about decisions. When I say I will take this decision, means I will take this decision. There cannot be anyone else coming and advising me what to do. Recently, there was an incident where he told me that there's some important meeting that is being fixed. And I said, okay, give me some time. I'll think over it. He thought it would become an easier decision for me to take if he speaks to my husband without telling me. And he called him up and he gave him that, this has happened and she's not being able to decide. And my husband said, okay, I'm not going to tell her, but why don't you say this to her? He calls me and he's like, ma'am, I have a way to handle this. And the minute he started to talk, I said, you've spoken to Vikram. He said, no, ma'am, I haven't. I know this is Vikram's point of view. So next time, when I tell you I will take this decision, it will be I, me, myself. Because I will own the responsibility. I will take that risk. I will take that chance. I don't want anyone else saying, oh, they contributed to that problem. So those are things where I just totally lose my cool.
Is social media still fun for you?
Social media, I think Instagram is big fun for me. That is one place which I can share. As of now, there haven't been too many trolls coming and gathering, and they are people who may disagree with me, but like some of nicer people where they're just talking about happy things, and even if they don't agree with my politics, they have nicer things to say about me. And but of course, I'm not active on anything else, not on Facebook, etc. But Twitter is X now. X has become extremely toxic. So I don't share anything private, personal on that platform. Yeah, because it's just so, anything I put there is up for trolling. And they pull out this, like a piece of evidence. Oh, look, you shared this 10 years ago. So look, I have a screenshot to share to you.
What's one Delhi myth you want to bust?
Delhi myth. Okay, will be very unpopular, but I must say it, that it's not safe for women to be out after certain hours.
That's a myth.
I think it is now. I could be wrong.
So what's one place in Delhi you return to whenever you're feeling like it's getting too much?
I think the only place I turn to is my home. That's where I get my peace. And in Delhi, Lodhi Garden, right across my house, I love the place. Every time
The spark be like...
मैं तो tomb के सामने जाकर बैठ जाती हूँ. Whenever I'm stressed out, I just go and watch that for hours. I can spend hours sitting there with nothing to do. Like, in Mumbai, whenever I was troubled, I used to go to the Juhu beach, just sit there, just hear the waves. And वहाँ पे I just keep admiring the beauty of that particular monument. So those are places I go to, which are easier.
Okay, you're raising kids, building political career, countering trolls. What's the one non-negotiable ritual which keeps you grounded?
Non-negotiable ritual, I think, would be my puja time that I do. And even if I'm traveling, I just try and do my meditation for half an hour. And it just kind of makes me feel better, makes me more at peace. So that's non-negotiable. Like I keep telling my husband that, before I turn 50, I would want to do all my Tirth Yatras so that my knee pain, ear pain, neck pain, whatever pains that are associated to, budhape mein jaakar apni Tirth complete karo. I don't want that. I want to complete it before I turn 50. Yeah. But yeah, by meditation, half an hour of my own time is non-negotiable to me.
Arjun Rampal or Omar Abdullah? Who's the real college crush?
That's a tough one. I really looked up to Omar Abdullah, and I still look up to him. He's such a frank, honest politician, refreshing change. He speaks his mind, and I've seen him now. I've seen him in close quarters, also in closed door meetings. He just speaks his mind. That's so beautiful to watch. And I've tried to imbibe that as much as I can because I associate with that kind of politics. And Arjun Rampal, I would say, was my college crush. I must say this, I don't know if you remember those two music videos, Gurnal, Ishq Mita and Longa Vacha. It was he. So I met him at Shashi Tharoor ji had his mango party that he had. And I happened to see Jas Arora there. Yeah, so he was there. And I said, he looks very familiar.
Your sari collection has become quite a soft power statement. How long have you been curating it?
Like I told somebody the other day, my father-in-law was asking me, Priyanka, तुम्हारे पास 100 साड़ियाँ तो होंगी? मैंने कहा, Dad, you grossly undermine me. And he laughed, both of us laughed, but no, I don't have as many sarees because I keep giving a lot away. But I just believe that this is my way. Okay, this is an excuse, but this is my way of supporting the handloom of this country and making people aware of the handloom that is available in this country. And that's the only way I can do it is through sarees.
I by the way, I don't think you're making an excuse because I also started wearing sarees only post-COVID.
Hello?
Yeah, and I said I only do it I was not comfortable.
No, I saw my mother-in-law and my mom wear a sari always. I was the one who was not very comfortable. But this has just become the way of life. Like I said, it's more forgiving, right? You don't have to fit into a sari. The sari fits into you, whatever shape, whatever size.
How long have you been curating it?
Ever since I started to wear saris, I prefer handloom saris, I prefer cotton saris more than anything else. But now I've taken a liking to silk also because Delhi weather allows you to wear silk. Mumbai weather just doesn't allow you to wear silk. I've taken a lot from my mother-in-law's collection. I've taken a lot from my sister-in-law who stays in Singapore, her collection. From my sisters, I just keep whacking saris from many places. Even my mom. So whenever I feel like, Mama, the sari that you were wearing the other day, I'm taking it. So she's also very, but of course, every state I go, I do a little bit of research and I end up going to, I always do that. And I'm sure you know about Priyanka Chaturvedi and her love for saris and weavers and how much she sells them. So now that she's back in the parliament, we've got her on duty. That please call this weaver, please get this weaver, please help us. So she does this. And I've got some amazing saris from her. Next time, 100%. I'll tell her.
Yeah, I'd love to. What's one male politician's habit you secretly wish you could adopt?
The ability to believe that they can do it all. Just say, हाँ, हो जाएगा, कर देंगे. अरे क्या दिक्कत है? अभी कर देता हूँ. अभी phone कर देते. That kind of confidence is another level. And I've seen all male politicians do it. काम हो ना हो. Confidence 100% है. Or unfortunately for women, we think 10 times, should I commit to this? And then I become so seriously committed to not being able to deliver that it starts getting me worked up. So let's say if someone has approached me for a college admission or something and I know the person, and I will do that. I'll go all out and ensure that admission happens. But let's say, I've seen many men say, हाँ, अभी क्या आता है, अभी बात कर लेता हूँ, admission ही नहीं होता. Right? I'm disturbed till the time I don't close that loop. And that, of course, politicians believe that they're born to be ministers, male politicians. ये तो हमारा काम है. ये तो हमारा काम है. Finance तो हम ही समझते हैं. तुम क्या समझते हो?
Last thing you posted and then deleted.
Posted, I don't delete most of the stuff. I put only if it's grammatically incorrect and it's not in context, I delete it. But I do keep archiving a lot of my Instagram posts because I like, as soon as I see followers drop, I'm like, looks like I'm doing some matrix problem. That's the only time I delete some stuff. Otherwise, my daughter keeps telling me, you should put some in stories, right? You cannot just have, मैंने कहा नहीं, कोई आकर 25 साल बाद देखना चाहेगा, मेरा तो देखिए, it's still there. She's like, you're strange, right? So those are the only things I keep deleting, some reels or whatever. But otherwise, I don't delete most of it. So that's why you'll have a whole record of Priyanka Chaturvedi screenshots and she was in the Congress. Yeah, I pulled it out. Oh, yeah, I pulled it out. Look, this is what you had to say about that BJP leader. Look now what you're saying. Okay, feel happy. Have fun.
Finally, what kind of India do you want your children to inherit? Not as a politician, but as a mother.
As a mother, a more forgiving nation, a more loving nation, a nation which respects one another, respects humanity, human lives. We've become so dehumanized that we don't even realize that we're being nasty anymore. It's just the way of living. I'm seeing this happen everywhere, at airports, on train stations. This is about immediate living, with our dogs, with our pets, with our strays. We've just become so, I would want them to see a more forgiving, all-encompassing world which accepts human failures, which accepts lesser humans, which accepts people who are not expected to be perfect in beauty, in shape, in size, in color, in religion, whatever. I mean, whatever you'll use to justify your hate. I want them to have that world. And a world of opportunities, of course. Let India be the land of opportunities.
So grateful.
Yeah.
Like, it was so refreshing to talk to you, and I feel we could go on and on.
This was a lovely conversation.
We should do a part 2 sometime.
Sure.
But thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.